This is Eastmans Elevated podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Got a brand new Eastmans Elevated for you. So today on the podcast, I have back on my friend Cain Rinehart. So Cain is a local guy. He's out of Bozeman there, so about 60 miles away from me. And I've known Cain for quite a while, and he's just one of these guys that is consistently successful with his bow. He's like put in the work in all these different facets to be at his very best bow hunting. And so he kills some great animals, and really I wanted to have him on the podcast today. So he started this like tuning bow shop where he does like next level tuning for people's bows. It's called Seuss Crick Archery, but the best way to reach him is through his Instagram at Cain Rinehart. But yeah, he's taking people's bows and doing this high level tuning. And so I wanted to walk through his process from start to finish. Throughout the last 20 years, I've also developed like a good process for setting up my bows for next level accuracy. And I still learn things from Cain as he just works on so many people's bows and so smart with this stuff. And so I picked up a couple tips as well that I'm implementing on my setup. But yeah, just walking through a bow, setting it up from start to finish of what's important and what's not, and how you can find more accuracy out of your bow. So it's a great podcast. I really appreciate him taking the time and being on and sharing so much good information. So we'll get right into it. I just want to thank a couple sponsors. I want to thank Element. Element is LMNT. Element, it's a hydration supplement. So it has electrolytes in it. You add it to your water, and it just helps you hold that water better. It's got no added sugar, so super healthy. And this is like great for all the hunting we do where we're sweating, hot weather hunts. Use it in the training and in like ultra running. And it's known in ultra running that if you just drink water, you can bonk and that you need to take salt tablets. And so I've incorporated this into my long distance running and also into my high exertion hunts. And I've seen huge benefits out of it. And so I started using this element a few months ago, and definitely I think it's even better than the salt tablets. So it's just going to be like an electrolyte supplement that's going to help you hold on to that water. So, like, there's this term or there's this deal that can happen in long-distance running, and I've had it on an ultra before. It's hyponatremia. And hyponatremia, I've actually seen it on some of my buddies as well, hunting early season hunts. Actually, I've seen it like hunting big mountain hunts at high elevation. So high elevation is also going to take more water from your system, and it's also going to put a higher exertion on the body. But this hyponatremia, it can develop through like high exertion, and basically you just bonk, and all of a sudden you start throwing up. You can't hold down water, you can't hold down food, and really there's like a lot of deaths from hot weather, high exertion. And so basically this element is just going to help you with this. There's so many like good benefits to this element, but it's going to maintain steady health, improve cognitive function, suffer fewer headaches, experience fewer muscle cramps, support fasting, regulate digestion, get better sleep, like a bunch of benefits out of it. And it's really easy. You just add it to your water, and it's going to help you hydrate. They've got a few different flavors that I really like, and you can actually get a sample pack where you can try out all these flavors with purchase. So you have to go to a landing page, and the landing page, let me find it here. It's drinkelement.com/elevated, and that'll get you that free sample pack of all those different flavors so you can figure out what kind you like. But I really like this stuff for my training, for my hunting, for my long distance running, and I'm seeing huge benefits in using it. So go check it out. Again, that landing page is drinkelement.com/elevated. And Element is LMNT, and thanks to those guys for their support. I also want to thank Sig Sauer Optics. Been really pumped with Sig Sauer Optics. Been using them the last few years. They've got such high-end glass now that holds up to all the top glass, and you can find that new glass in their new Zulu 6s HDXs. Man, it's just awesome glass. I got a pair of 15s, so 15 by 56s. Also got a pair of 10 by 42s, and I love them. They're just great glass. The other thing I really like from Sig Sauer is their image stabilizing binos. These things are an absolute game changer, and it seems like everybody I hand a pair eventually ends up with them and ends up being more effective in spotting more game. It's basically just like glassing off a tripod everywhere you look. You can look off the windiest ridge and you have a stable image to look through. They've actually revamped this whole series, put their high-end glass in it. Super impressed. So these are their Zulu 6s HDXs. I really like the 12 by 42s. I haven't had a chance to try the 10 by 30s yet, but I really like the old pair of 10 by 30s, so I think it'd be like a great set. But this 12 by 42 has been money for me. I also like the 16 by 42s. I'll carry those in my pack. They're good for glassing distance, or also for like being able to size up animals and such. So really like those. They also have a pair of 20s, which have a high magnification. So you can check those out. I also think Sig Sauer is doing rangefinders better than anybody out there. You can check out their new Kilo 5K. That's what I'm using. Just the same ranges on light and dark targets. A powerful laser that'll shoot through grass. It'll do angles, and not only do angles, but you can put in the speed of your bow to get the exact cut, as it's so important for us archers, especially shooting in steep terrain. So, yeah, just absolutely love their rangefinders, binoculars, rifle scopes, also spotting scopes. They've got a great one that's just such good glass in it. It's an 80 mil objective lens, 27 by 55 power. The thing is absolutely crystal clear. So yeah, an awesome scope. You can check that out as well. And thanks to those guys for their support of the podcast. Look forward to seeing them here at some upcoming shows. Well, I guess I'm just doing the hunting expo there in Salt Lake City. So look forward to seeing those guys there. And man, yeah, I also want to thank Black Ovis. So Black Ovis is an internet retail shop. They carry all the top name brands as well as their own name brand. They have a knowledgeable staff. Yeah, you can just pick up anything you need for your next hunt. And I always like to look at the end of the season and see if there's an item or two that I can upgrade on. I'm not sure, mine might maybe like trekking poles this year, something like that. I'm pretty well set up. But yeah, just looking through my gear, trying to figure out anything I need for next season. Oh, you know what I really like is I really like those insulated water bladders. I have one of them that's a 100-ounce one, so I'd like to get another one of those and maybe an uninsulated model just for keeping water for backpacking missions. So those are the couple things I'll probably upgrade on this year. But yeah, check them out over at Black Ovis. You can also save 10% off your order by putting in the promo code ELEVATED10 and save a little bit of money there. And over at Eastmans, check out that mule deer course that Dan and I put together. It's sure to shorten your learning curve by years by just taking the time and going through. It's a video format, so really easy to digest, but it's absolutely everything I've learned about hunting mule deer, traveling to different habitats, different seasons. So you can check that out. Put in the promo code BrianMDC. That'll save you 10% on your order. Check out Tag Hub. Check out our videos beyond the grid. It's our Eastman's YouTube channel. So we have my goat hunt that went on there. There's quite a few of my hunts on there. There's a couple mule deer hunts, a couple elk hunts. If you look back, there's an antelope hunt. I kind of share the episode with Brandon Mason, but it's on there. Also a caribou hunt. I shared that one with Brandon Mason as well. So yeah, you can check those out. It's on Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. And the magazines and everything else we're doing over there. So we're keeping busy. I'm just going to get these podcasts out here, and then I'm going to head over to the office and meet with everybody. I know it's show season here, but yeah, just going to do the Monday morning meeting on everything Eastman. So we'll be good to catch up with those guys. Hopefully I can get a podcast or two recorded with some good information. So Yeah, I'll shoot over and do that. It's pretty cold today. The roads are going to be pretty icy. It's going to take me a bit to get over there. It's only about 3 or 4 hour drive, but that'll probably be 5 or 6 with the way the roads are. But no worries, just take my time, make it there safe. So that's what I'm up to. Let's get into this podcast. It's a great one with Cain Rinehart, all about setting up your bow from scratch. And I'm your host, Brian Barney, Eastmans Elevated. Here we go. Man, the bow shop looks good back there.
Yeah, thanks. I've added a couple new things this year, man. I swear, man, lastchancearchery.com, they really get me every year. I'm always just picking up the new products they put out and everything, and been doing a lot of work this year and upgraded some of my stuff, upgraded my press, been working a lot on that new lift. So tons of tinkering when the winter months started settling in, that's for sure. So yeah, it's good in here, man. It's been a lot of hours spent in here, and I've been, ever since my lift got here, I don't feel like I've left it really.
Well, good, dude. That's why I wanted to get you on the podcast. Like, man, I want to hear about your season and definitely hear about you and your buddy in that 400-inch bowl. But
yeah,
what I think I want to do for today's conversation is just kind of chat over with you, because you're so knowledgeable with these bows, but just talk over our process and how, if guys want to get that next level accuracy, like how we set up our bows from start to finish and what's important and what's not.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And I have like, and I think everything we need to talk about here, it's all just, everyone needs to remember this stuff is all preference in the end of the day. You know, I mean, some people are going to say the opposite of what either you or I think, if they have a process that works better for them to get tuned and ready for hunting season. And that's totally fine. Like, the thing about me is I'm never here to tell anybody what's right and wrong, just kind of how I do things. And I'm fresh with it right now because, yeah, so I just got the new lift, went to 80 pounds this year. So super stoked about that. This year I was really hoping to try the new match string, but I want to be ready for spring this year. So I just kind of went with my usual go-to, which is the Gas Ghost XV string. So that's always the first thing I do is, and I don't know about you with your string preference, but I'm waiting for the match to kind of get out there and see how my, certain buddies like it and everything, and kind of let the waters get tested there for a little while.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And then we'll come back to that in the summer when it's time to get ready for the fall. And the Gas Ghost XV string is just always been the most stable string I've ever shot. I used to run them on my competition bows when I shot competition, and now I'm running them on all my hunting bows. And the big thing with those strings is, they only come white. You can only pick your serving colors, which people don't understand. That's one of the things that makes a string stable. You see these guys with some strings that have like tons of dye in them, because it looks cool. But those dyes are kind of what can make strings stretch more over time. And so, and Gas is a cool company, man, because like they're small. And so they pay a lot of attention to details when they're doing their strings. This isn't like a mass produced product. But in the beginning, that's the first thing I always do. And then once that's on, man, I'm going to start checking the bow and making sure things are in spec, which is a huge thing I want to talk about today is, getting a bow in spec, meaning making sure your axle to axle is correct, cam timing and all that, which, all those things go hand in hand. And before I do that, I always like to put my peep in first. Like, it's one of the first things I do. And reason being is the string itself, unlike the cables, is something you're going to mess with maybe once and probably not again, unless you want to change your draw length by, half a twist or something like that. But what I don't know about you, but one of my pet peeves, like most bow hunters, is peep twist. It drives me nuts. And so a way that I figured out how to really get that dialed in is to do that first. Like, I'll put that peep in and I set my peep to the proper height. A lot of guys, they like to put their peep in, and then if it's not straight, maybe just like move it up and down to get it right. But I always make sure that, when I'm installing that peep, I'm drawing my bow with my eyes closed and making sure when I open up, when that sight is topped out, it's right where I need it to be. And then I start twisting the string to get that in the right spot. And then from there, once it's off just by a little bit, you can do all these new cool things to get your peep twist like just perfect. I don't know if you've seen those, you've seen those Bomar peep tuners. Have you seen those?
No.
It's a cool little like wedge device, man. So Bomar's got some cool products, but they came out with this little pack of like, it's these little plastic wedges that you can put into your string to really micro tune your peep. Like if you're looking at it and it's slightly turned to the left, you install one of those above the peep. And then if you are turned to the right, you install it down below the Dloop. And they have different sizes depending on how much you want to tune it. You can really micro tune exactly like where you want that thing, so it's just piped, because that's what I really strive for. And that's why I do this in the beginning, because once we manipulate that string, we don't really have to do much else. And I also I don't like to see setups where guys they have their peep really twisted and they'll just manipulate the Dloop point in that direction to draw it back, and then it just twists. But if you could start from the beginning and have that perfect backwards travel of your Dloop and your peep to have that thing piped, why not do it that way?
Man, you're spot on. There's like nothing that bothers me more than a twisting peep. And it's like it takes a little bit to dial in, it seems like, with mine. So let's just start from the beginning. So your strings, I think that's great. That you're the second person that has told me how well they like those gas strings. And I also like the natural color, no dye in it. It makes for a more stable string that's not going to stretch, you're not going to twist. So I think that's great. I've actually been using the Matthews strings, which has been those zebra strings. You called it a match string. Is that something new they came out with this year?
Yeah, your lift has it.
Okay.
They're all running standard now. So Matthews, they weren't receiving a ton of awesome feedback over the years on zebras. People, had their complaints. So what did they do? Like they do with everything, they took their feedback and they fixed it. And then Matthews is producing in-house now their own string called Match.
Okay,
and
cool.
Coming in different colors. Your bow is going to come standard with a black one.
Yep.
And the only reason I don't have that on yet is, like I said, I want it to be out there for a little bit and hear about the waters getting tested, see what some buddies think about it. And that's because my hunting season will start this winter with some cat hunting, some spring hunting. And so I need to be dialed by then. So for now, I just go with what I know. But I'm hearing really good feedback, man. I know some guys that make their own strings that have really tested out those Match, and they say they're super stable. So I think you're going to be happy with it.
Yeah, it seems like after I can get a string broken into where it goes, I don't see much movement throughout the year on them. But, they can lose poundage as they get wet and they dry out in different climates. Like you talk about factory spec, and that's what we're going to get into next, which Matthews are great about having their bows at factory spec. Like one way you can check your axle to axle length is by taking a measurement, and it should be absolutely right on the money. In fact, mine's like maybe like a 16th less or whatever, so it's juiced up just a little bit and tuned in really good right there. But yeah, that's what you're talking about. And you talked about setting up your peep first. I love no rotation. It's like, seems like it takes a while shooting, and then you really got to mess with it. So the way I do the same thing is I find the absolute middle power path of the string. And so, center through the burger button hole is where I'm going to tie my string loop, and I tie like a little piece of thread on the top and the bottom. That way my D-loop won't pinch my nock in there for shooting uphill, downhill, or for hanging onto the arrow extra long. And so I'll tie that little piece of thread or serving above and below, tie my string loop, and I take a measurement from each one of my cams, and then I also put an arrow that goes straight through the burger button hole, and then that's where I'm going to tie my string loop. And I don't move my string loop much for tuning. Like I'm able to tune with my rest most of the time. So I'm like you. After I get that tied in, then I'll just measure, and I have a measurement from the center of my string loop to the center of my peep where I like it at. And so I put it's like 5 and 15/16 or right at around 6 right there. And then from there with that peep, man, I've been checking out, like last year I shot that total peep, and I really liked like the dark ring around it, and then the oval on the inside and a 3/16. It worked really well and brought in my accuracy, especially in indoor where I had that really dark oval around to line up my sight. And then this year I'm trying that Hamsky, their peep that they have. And actually the Hamsky has a 3/16 and also has a 7/32. So the 7/32 is slightly bigger. And it seems like that's almost a better fit for me in outdoors and all lighting conditions. It doesn't have quite as big of a dark ring inside for indoor, but my eyes are still aligning it really good for indoor, or at least good shooting it where it's shooting good. So what peeps are you using, or how do you recommend guys go with their peeps?
So something I'm doing this year. So the peep you're talking about, I believe what you have is the Raptor peep.
Yep.
Super good product. I was actually running it on my last two bows. But this year, what I decided to do was I went with the Insight system from Hamskea, which is where you install a peep and then you get the aperture kit with it. So you can take those in and out to change the inner size of that thing to match your rings better to your scope housing. And that's definitely more of a target archery thing, man. But I've been able to tinker so much with that because I'm running a different type of scope this year. I really want to, get that fit right. Some guys really like that ring to like perfectly go around their sight housing. Some guys kind of like it just right around the outside. That's a preference thing. And I play with both, and that's what the aperture kit is good for. You got to spend more money on it because it's more parts. But man, it's been sweet. Like I've been shooting.
That's really cool, Cain. Yeah, so you can change the aperture, because you're right. Sometimes a perfect fit shoots really good, but it's almost like a small halo aligns better just because you see that halo blacking out on either side. It seems like I get better peep alignment, like shooting outdoors, or more naturally, we'll say, with that. But that's really cool. Yeah, I hadn't seen that product.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Like I said, it's been a target archery thing. But going back to what I said, like when I want to put that peep in, I tie my peeps in with those double leg peep knots to really lock them in, which isn't a preference for all archers because of how permanent it is. But when, before that was a bigger deal when I would put just one standard peep in and then practice for a while and be like, I don't really like the size of that. It was a ton of work to get it out, put it back in, get the twist right. So with the Hamskea, that was going back to what I said, setting everything up in the beginning. I get that thing straight, and then I just change apertures. I can leave that peep in almost for good until a new string comes on. So that's why I really like those double leg peep knots, man. A lot of guys like to tie stop knots in each end, and because it's more adjustable. But me being as how I'm on my previous bow was the exact same size as this one, a 33-inch. My peep height and D-loop, they all stay exactly the same. So that was convenient for me. So, and the Hamskea Insight system has been cool, man. And I'm still kind of playing with the apertures. I think I found the one I want, but just taking them in and out instead of having to untie that knot every time and then totally mess with your string again, and then you're back to dealing with twists and all that. So this thing is saving me a lot of time, is what it's doing.
Yeah, that makes good sense. So that knot you use, I'm all for really tying in peeps, because man, any movement on that throws you off. And that too, if you don't tie in your peep really well, what you can get with some of these bigger peeps, like that total peep, is it wants to slip down the hill, and it slips so small, so subtle, that it's really hard to notice. And pretty soon your zero's off and you're moving your sight, chasing your tail. So I'm like you, I like to really tie those things in. So that knot you're talking about, I tend to go down one string and then around the peep and then down the other side of the string, and I do that both sides. Is your knot different than that, or what knot are you using?
It looks the same, but it looks the same. It just starts a little differently, man. You start in the center and tie your peep in, and then you go up one leg and down the other one.
Oh, that's
with
cool.
Each end. It's just a little.
Cool.
It's the same thing. It's just the process to tie it's a little differently. When I learned how to that knot, it took me a while to perfect. So once I figured it out, I just stuck with that process, and my peeps have been locked in really tight with that knot. And it also kind of looks cool, like people like to play with how many spirals are in the string, but whatever. That's just more a aesthetic, personal thing.
Yeah, it's nice to have a clean build. Excuse me, gosh. I was just having a cup of coffee here and swallowed it down the wrong pipe. But yeah, no, I do like a clean looking bow for sure.
Yeah. So it looks really good. So yeah, that all, and like I said, when I'm transferring from a bow that's the same exact size, once D-loop and peep are in the right spot, we can start moving on. And touching on what you said about, setting up going through the burger hole. So I've gone both ways with where to put your D-loop and where to put your rest. I used to do running a bow square right down through the center and doing what you do, and just starting out with that arrow running perfectly through the center of the burger hole. But I've gone another way with that, which this also works great too. So you know how I'm assuming you've shot some of the integrate rests where it shows that little arrow that you can match up on your bow riser, which is so awesome to have integrate parts, man. These things that go together like a glove. Because once you set that there, that's kind of where Matthews prefers to have that thing. And I was noticing over the years shooting a Matthews that my arrows tuned good with just the slightest downward angle. And I mean, and by slight, I mean I level the bow, put an arrow level on, and that arrow level, I'll have that bubble like just barely touching the line. So I got ahead of that, and I set my rest right where Matthews recommends, and then usually adjust my D loop just to where that arrow is just ever so slightly pointed down. And it actually worked out great this year, man. My arrow tuned for up and down tears, it tuned perfectly right out of the gate. So that can go both ways, I think. And guys will have totally different preferences on that, because I've done it both ways, and both ways work. But I do like to put that rest where Matthews recommends having it, because it just, it's so, and then if I need more room to tune and you put it at that spot, your rest has more ability to move up and down. I felt like before with that downward angle, I was setting my D loop first. My rest would be really, really close to the shelf of the riser when it was all the way down. I wasn't crazy about that because I was like, man, if anything goes out of whack here, I have no adjustability. So I've had more adjustability going this route.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you're saying like your rest is so close that if you have to move it down, it starts hitting the riser, and then you run out of room, and then you've got to retie in your D loop, redo your peep sight, redo everything. And so I'm like you, as I try to get ahead of that a bit, and that's why I try to measure and find the exact center between both the cams as well, because I feel like that seems to tune really well for me. If I get it a little bit low or a little bit high on my string loop, it seems like those cams aren't making equal force on that arrow, and I can have those up and down tunes. So I'm like you. I do like that recommended spot that Matthews has for their integrated resting right there. I wasn't paying much attention to it, but I do end up really close to their recommended spot every time by the time I get all said and done. But yeah, we're real similar on that, the way we set it up. So, okay. So now you've got, your peep, and you've got that where you've got it twisting right. You've got your rest in there. You've got it set right. Your sight's mounted. Go through your sight real quick, like the 3 axes of leveling and how to get a sight set up correctly.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of guys choose sights depending on how adjustable these axes are. And that's never what makes me choose a sight in the beginning. But I do it a little differently than guys. I have one of those little devices that your sight locks into, and it has little dials on it to perfectly level the device and do it from there. It can be, and the reason for that, man, is because it can be really hard to do it on your bow. You have to have a very good vise, which I do, and then trying to get your bow perfectly level in the vise and trying to correct the first, second, and third axis while it's on there, it's hard. It's like trying to sight in a rifle at 300 yards for your zero. You're just there's movement. You don't have as much control over everything. I actually have it right behind me here. I can't. Yeah, it's just called it's just a little device where you can mount your mounting bracket onto it and then level everything perfectly there. So it's just a more controlled way to do it.
Yeah, that's good thinking. I like that. I've seen it in shops and messed around with them. And so they come perfectly level, which your bow needs to be perfectly level. And so basically the old school way is to level in between your pockets of your cams right there. And so you level your bow there, and then you put your sight in, and then you level your sight to make sure your sight's level, and then you move the bubble level, is like the trying to get all 3 of those things to line up. So it is a bit of messing around to make sure that you get it perfect, and it makes such a difference on your accuracy, your left and right hits, and
Big
not
time.
getting any cam lean. And so it's got to be perfect. And so I can see why a professional like you has like found a shortcut for it, because it does take me some time to get everything level. So yeah, level your bow, level the sight, and then level the level in there.
Yeah, exactly. I think, with and some guys don't put a lot of important in access adjustments, but I put a ton into it, man. I mean, if you don't correct the third axis, which is that's the one that has the biggest influence on those up and downhill shots. And we hunt the mountains here. We don't get a lot of perfectly level shots. You hunt, this especially because you've hunted so many high country mule deer. Most of your shots are like that.
Mhm.
And it's crazy to me that somebody would go into a high country, Utah muley hunt and not even think about that third axis and how much that can affect that arrow travel. If you're pointing downhill, you think your bubble's level, but what you're actually, doing is manipulating your arrow more of a certain direction. And, that could be super costly, man, in a high pressure situation. So the axis adjustments are very important. And a lot of sites, it's easier to do on some sites than others. Cause I've shot them all now. I've shot, black gold, HHA, spot hog, and they all have some of them are super easy to do. The third axis, some of them are tough. You kind of just, you gotta play with all of them and see what you like to do. But it's
So now,
super,
Cain, like you're kind of like you're jumping ahead to the third axis now, right? So like
yeah,
for setting up the sight, you want to make sure it's level in your device, right? And level with
yeah,
your bow and the bubbles level. And then
yep.
from there, are you setting your third axis now, or is your third axis adjustment something that you'll do later in the setup of this bow?
It comes a little later. Like I do the
Yep.
second first, where wherever your sight is on the post is the part where you have to get that nice and level. I mean, that's just kind of a given. That needs
Yep.
to be level, because if you draw your bow back, it's never gonna feel right. Yeah, the third axis, I guess I'm just trying to emphasize on the importance of it, is what
Oh,
it
for
is.
100%, man. You're so
Yeah.
spot on. It's like I can't believe how many guys don't set the third axis for going hunting, even if you're not hunting high country mule deer. Like, and you are so spot on, Cain, as it can make a huge difference. You're talking feet inside our effective range that arrow can be off by the third axis. So, like, while we're talking about sights and third axis, let's talk about how you set up your third axis and what works for you. Like you say, I know guys all have different systems for setting it up, but basically your third axis is the most important when you're shooting up or downhill shots. And like Cain explained, you can see your level is level, but you're pointing downhill where it's skewed, and so you can actually shoot off to the left or the right by not having your third axis set. So talk about your third axis, Cain, and how you set that up.
So once the first and second are good, I put it in the bow. I put the sight back in the bow, take it in out, draw it back, see how that feels, make sure that all feels good with a natural draw. The device I have that I'm telling you about that I lock my sight into, you can undo a wheel and pitch the sight up or down.
Oh.
And so that's the best way to do it, man. Like it's a super controlled way to do it. Because going back to trying to do this in the bow, before you start pitching it up and down to see how your bubble reacts, you need to make sure the bow is perfectly level, which, like I said, can be tough. The device I have will actually pitch the sight up and downward. I'll put it on the edge of the table, pitch it down, pitch it up. And whatever the third axis adjustment point is, I'll start to maneuver that until it gets just right. And I keep making sure that it's not just, I don't just point it up and then make sure it's good. I point it down, up, and make sure it's level the entire way through that travel. So that's another thing that this little device does for me that you don't have to do with the sight necessarily on the bow. Because if first and second axis are level, well then just, why not use my little micro tune device to get that just right, instead of the bow, which is kind of going to wiggle around on the bow vise a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's sick, man. Do you find that it's spot on when you start shooting up and down from setting it that way?
Oh yeah. If it wasn't, I wouldn't use it. I've taken it out.
Yeah, I
I
set mine up. I've done like a couple different ways, like trying to aim down a string and look at it that way. I set it up with the Hooter shooter once, and I don't know if I've just got a slight torque to my grip, but after setting it up with a hooter shooter and pointing it downhill, I went out and shot it and proofed it, and it just wasn't right. It just like was still missing to the right a hair. I had to tweak it a little bit further over. So that's why I ask. And like I say, all our processes are different. But yeah, I pretty much get mine close at the house by leveling down a level string. But then it seems like I just got to go out and proof mine, like go out and shoot it at distance. But it's tough because once you're out there shooting angles at distance, you can't adjust it. You've got to go home and then adjust your third axis, sight back in on flat, and then go out to angles again. And so it's just been what I've been practicing all these years and what I trust to make my downhill and uphill shot. So I may be like a bit of the old-fashioned way or working way too hard to get mine set up. I should try to I need to get one of those sight holders that you're talking about that can move it downhill and then proof it and then believe in it. And then I can set up all my bows that way, like you're doing.
Yeah, I know this is, nobody can see it probably, but this is what it is, man. It's called a Bright. It's made by a company called Bright Sight.
Oh,
you
sweet.
see that's where my sight goes in, and then everything, you can, move everything and pitch it from there. Yeah. So actually it works. It works really well. Like I've been super happy with it. I've been using it now for like 4 years, and I've been super happy with the way it's worked. Sorry.
Well, you would know if it's off too. It's like shooting those tack events and things where they have those steep uphill and downhill, and then they have them at like really long distances. That's where you're going to see like if your third axis is off at all. And the way you shoot, like if yours was off by even a few inches, I think you would notice because you'd be right on all your shots or whatever. So yeah, it's obviously working for you. So I think I'm working a bit too hard to get my third axis set. I think I need to buy one of those things that you're talking about.
It's worked, man. And the biggest gripe that you'll hear from people, it's like, well, it's not on the bow when you're doing it. But what you'll notice is the levels that come inside the device, you level it on your table first and then adjust from there. And I mean, when I've put it back on the bow, everything's always been level. And there's no better place to test this out than a Total Archery Challenge, where you're going to get the craziest angled shots. And that's actually every year at TAC is actually where I confirm that axis is on. And then I leave it alone. So yeah, this little device, man, like I compared it to, just sighting in a rifle at close range. You have a little more control, and it's just more precise, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Yeah, I think you're spot on. Okay, so you got your sight mounted, you got all three axes set. Now you're gonna begin your tuning process and make sure that this thing is shooting right. So talk about factory specs and the measurements and how precise Matthews is, how you can go off that, and then just the importance of cam timing too. It's like the littlest bit makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, I've been dying to talk about this part because
good. Okay, go ahead.
So from here, from where I move on here, man, is all my cable work. So when we need to adjusting cables affects a few different things. To adjust your draw weight, it affects cam timing, and it affects your axle to axle. So normally, the great thing about ordering high quality strings is they have all these preset twists that come so that when you put that string on your bow, your axle to axle should be just about right. Now, cam timing is the thing that I can't stress enough to people, and I always do mine on a drawboard. When I was younger and would go into shops, the guys would kind of take my bow, draw it back, and be like, "Yeah, that feels good." Like they're trying to feel if those stops are hitting the cables just right. And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I gotta get more precise than that." So I have a drawboard here in the shop, and I get pretty wacky with it, man. So I'll put a big light in here, get that bow drawn back. And a drawboard, man, is one of the most important things you could have if you ever invest in bow shops in your house. It's one of my favorite things because you really get to inspect what everything is at full draw. I mean, we can't really do that drawing the bow back ourselves. So when I'm looking at those stops, I'm looking to see which one is hitting first. And then I will make twists in and out of the strings depending on whether my axle to axle was right. Now, if I feel like my axle to axle might have been a slight bit more than what it's supposed to be, well, that means we're going to put a twist in something. If I felt the axle to axle was a little too close, that means we could take a twist out of something. Whatever stop is hitting first on that cable, that's the one that needs a twist. And then so have you ever heard of the in cam timing system from Conquest Archery?
No, I haven't.
So guys were doing their cam timing, and they couldn't get their stops to hit perfectly because a half twist would either send a stop too far forward or too far back. So professional archer Dan McCarthy got with Conquest Archery and came out with these little hourglasses. They're little tiny little metal hourglasses. I have kits of them behind me here. And you insert those into your cables to simulate an eighth of a twist. And you can get it like perfect. Because guys were just
that's crazy, man. Yeah, because you fight it back and forth trying to get it perfect, and it makes such a big difference in the tuning process to have them exact. You definitely don't want that bottom cam forward, or you're just going to get some funky arrow flight. And you're right, I have invested in a drawboard as well, as it's just the only way to get it real precise. Like I used to have, you try to have somebody look at it and back off it and come back into it, but it's just not as precise as a drawboard. And so, yeah, like having a drawboard that you can see your bow at full draw makes a difference. So how do those hourglass spacers work? Where do you insert them in the string to get that 1/8 inch twist, or how does that all come together?
When you press your bow, you loosen up the cable and just open it up, even amount of strands, and it goes inside the string.
Okay. Where at in the string? Any place in the string?
It's in the cable. I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking. It goes it goes into the cable. And so if it's whatever cam is hitting first, because it's off, you insert an hourglass into the cable that controls that cam.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
That's so cool because it can be so tough to get them precise. You half a twist one way and can't get it half a twist another way. And then what you're talking about your ATA length. And so the Matthews are really good and should measure exactly what your axle to axle measurement should be to be in specs. So if your bow's a 33 or mine's a 29.5, it should measure exactly 29.5 from axle to axle, and that's how you know where it's in its location. And then you're adjusting that with your cables by putting a twist or taking a twist out. And now what you're talking about is the cam timing, is that you want both the cams to go at the exact same time to have the exact same pressure on that on your arrow from both the top and the bottom, which makes for a real forgiving tune. So that hourglass you're moving in there, which can move it an 1/8 of a twist, which is crazy, man. So you can get yours just so spot on the money.
Yeah, I can get it just about perfect, man. And and they don't be afraid to put them in both cables if you need to, because like I said, they make them in it's 4 different sizes. When you get the kit, there's 2 of each in 4 sizes. You can really mess around with it. And some people might think I'm nuts when I'm talking about trying to get this precise on cam timing. But if you want to eliminate up and down tears before you hit the paper tuner, just do this part, because it's gonna save you so much headache in the end. Because up and down tears can mean a lot of different things. Up and down tears indicate weak and stiff tears. So we can rule out cam timing in the beginning and just get that just right. And yeah, those kits are cool, man. Like, these companies are coming out with all these neat little things to get super precise. And just for these, and you and I have talked before, these are just tighter tolerances we're fighting for. Like, with just twisting, yeah, you can get it close and it'll probably work out. But if I can get those things hitting to where they are hitting at the exact same time, well, I've just eliminated a bunch of questions that'll come up if I'm seeing those up and down tears. So yeah, it's an in-cam timing. It's just tiny little metal hourglasses that go inside of your cables. Highly recommend it for anybody that wants to, be a little nuts like me and really spend a lot of time on that cam timing.
Yeah, I'm same. Tighter tolerances. It just makes for a more forgiving setup, which, makes for a better shooting bow in the end. It's like, if you can take the time to really go through that bow and get the absolute best tune in it you can, it like pays off down the road when you're shooting at that trophy bull or trophy buck. I really think that. So yeah, I'm same as you. So, okay. So you got your cam timing right, your axle to axles right. Now everything's going. Now you're going to to move into the tuning process and see how that arrow is actually leaving the bow. So arrows so important to have them built right to where they're spine correct to your bow. That's like the most important thing. But also like this tuning process is gonna show if that arrow isn't reacting right to the bow. But I always like to start with like a perfectly built arrow that's spined for that bow.
And perfectly built arrows, man, are it's one of the biggest things between you and shooting your broadheads accurately is getting arrows perfectly spined. And this is something that can take a lot of playing around with, and it can take a lot of screwing up some arrows that you got to toss away because you were adjusting things, and I've have some standards that I use, man, when it comes to spine. So I run some heavy I run heavy components up front. So I'm usually a spine above whatever the recommended spine is for my bow, because adding things to the end of the arrow, like, weakens it. And this just takes a lot of playing, man. Like, some guys have a very strict preference on where their arrow is cut and where the broadhead ends up. Like, some guys do not want that broadhead when they go to full draw coming anywhere near the riser. They like to leave arrows a little long. So that's going to make your arrow weaker. I've seen some guys shoot small broadheads or shooting mechanicals that they try to get that arrow as short as humanly possible, and a lot of time to cut down weight to make it faster. But then you're making your arrow stiff. You really got to find that balance, man. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Building
you
arrows.
You can get a bunch of arrows that are built for your bow. It does come down to preference. And also like those shorter arrows like built with the correct spine have like less wind drift, because there's less arrow shaft there to catch the wind. So, I kind of like mine short, just beyond the rest a little bit, like to find the perfect spine and the perfect cut. And then I'm like you, where I like heavy components out front. So I definitely have to size up on my spine. I like to use like that archer's advantage to help me dial in that cut, so I don't have to wreck a bunch of arrows to get there. And after you set up a bunch of these bows with arrows, kind of know what that bow is going to get along with as far as spine and cut, and running it through the programs to see and go, okay, yeah, this spine's going to work pretty good. It's kind of like my starting point for sure.
Yeah. The cool thing about arrows, man, is the menagerie of things you can find to change your arrows. I don't think any part of my arrow is from the same company. I've got a brand of arrow, I've got a brand of insert, slash outsert, different brand of hit, insert, different, brands of field points. There's so many different things you can do. When you get into the paper tuner, man, the first thing you got to keep in mind is you could end up chasing your tail for quite a while, which a lot of us do.
I have in my earlier days, man, oh man. Well, you still can. Like any bow can give you problems, or any bow and arrow setup. But yeah, you can chase your tail for sure.
And then first thing, if when you go to shoot that first arrow through paper, man, like if you're super close on your up and down tear, well, that pretty much confirms that you've done a good job of picking out your spine. I have seen the biggest correlation I've seen between guys and inaccuracy with broadheads is not having an arrow that's correctly spined. It's all about, it's just like when you build that perfect rifle round for your gun. You're trying different things to see what it likes, because everything likes something different. And people claim, like, there's people that will claim certain bows like a weaker spine and some bows like a stiffer spine. And I've always ran mine optimally. Like you're talking about archer's advantage. I've used archer's advantage forever. And I always use that as a general rule of thumb. And I won't necessarily make it so it's like perfectly optimal, but I use it as a guide to make sure I'm not getting out of the ranges too far. And that's always worked really well for me. And on your arrow building, man, like it's components are everything, and they're also all about preference. Some guys really like to stay away from aluminum and get more towards titanium, so they have, because I think a big part of an arrow flying well is all the strength up front, which is why some of my components are heavier, using titanium, things like that. And I try different stuff every year, man. Just kind of depends on what I'm thinking and what I want to try. And I always end up with about 200 grains up front. no matter what. But in the paper tuning process, like I said, if we've got good up and down tears, or sorry, no up and down tears, then we're ready to move on to that side to side. And so, and this has been such another great thing over the years, is all these integrate parts, So Matthews, for, and I know you and I just keep using Matthews as the example because that's what we shoot. But that integrate rest comes with those little numbers on it, and you can keep it right at 0 because that's your bow's center shot. That's Matthew's center shot, which is right at 13/16. And the big thing, man, about tuning is tuning in spec. And that goes back to what I was saying. We need to make sure axle to axle's right. We need to be very sure that center shot's right. I've had guys come have work done on their bows here, and they're like, my bow's throwing a really good paper tune, but then I get outside and at longer distances and with broadheads, I'm starting to see these groups open up. And I'm like, well, are you tuned in spec? There's a difference between being paper tuned and paper tuned in spec. I'll look at their bow and see the rest is way jacked out to one side, or it's too close to the riser, or I see that their Dloop is not centered enough and it's not pushing through the center of the bow correctly. And then obviously with the way you and I adjust our bows with cam shimming, because there's so many people that have tuned bows to get those side to side tears by just moving that rest around. I mean, really, man, these bows were designed so those rests aren't moved. At the very most, you can move it maybe a tick mark. But once you put that rest on and you have it at 0, 13/16, you need to start working with your cams to correct side-to-side tears, not jacking around your rest. The rest serves as a micro tune for when they're just a little bit left or right, and you want to get that just perfect. And that's what guys knew for so long, was just to move their rest. But once we do that, we're out of spec. And this just leads to problems down the road that guys, they don't know why they occurred. Like I said, the paper tune looks good. Like, I don't get it. But we need to be tuned in spec, man. If not only we want to shoot accurately, but we want to throw broadheads accurately, and we want to throw them accurately at long ranges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Is just trying to get that thing to tune in spec, like you said. That's something that I'm always working towards. Because, yeah, you can have a bow that tunes outside or tunes inside, and it's not about having that thing sit way outside. It is about shimming those cams with their cam shim system to make it tune to the power path of that string right down that spec. So, man, I think you couldn't be more spot on with what you're talking about, because it just makes for like a more forgiving setup out at range, out at different yardages. It makes everything come together and makes for a more accurate bow. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's like trying to get it tuned as close to the 13/16 as you can by shimming the cams around. So that's something that I do as well.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of time, man. Like, and there's other companies that have streamlined this process. Like, I don't know how well you pay attention to like Bowtech, but for years now, you've been able to do their cam shimming with the twist of an Allen wrench. And now their new bows, you can also use an Allen wrench now to do your cam timing, which is nuts. Like, to be able to shim and time with an Allen wrench is crazy. But with our system, it's a little more rigid than that. We're changing out top hats, which it takes a lot more time. But I really like that rigidity of the top hat system. Like, yeah, every time I want to make that left and right adjustment, I'm coming back and forth to the press. And, I have to remove the cams and check on all this stuff. But with the top hat system, because you can buy your whole kit, like, so let's say you move the top hat on the top cam, just the slightest that you can. Like, you change it out for one bigger size to move to the left or right, and then it went too far on the tear. Well, put it back the way it was. Try doing that adjustment on the bottom cam this time. See if that makes a difference. And this is the most time-consuming part of paper tuning for me, is the cam shimming, because I like to get it right. And I'm not kidding. I've ran every size of top hat through both bottom and top cam before I got it just right.
Me too.
It takes time, but I do like the rigidity in that system, man. Like, if I was walking around hunting with a bow where all that can be adjusted with an Allen wrench, I'm one of those guys that, like, if I drop my bow, I'm going to be nervous that something came loose. or something's going to turn, and now I'm going to be paranoid. I'm going to be in my head like that. And that's what I love about the top hat system with Matthews, is once you lock that in, that can't be screwed with once you're out in the field hunting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm same. Yep. So getting that timing with those top hats and making it come into that factory spec makes a huge difference. And then do any bear shaft tuning, or is all yours paper tuning nowadays?
I do a little bit, and now with this you can dive into the craziest rabbit hole ever when it comes to bear shaft tuning, because there's guys that like to index, which is where they try to find where that spine of the arrow is, and the spine of an arrow is when they're wrapping that carbon wherever it overlaps on there. There's that line down the arrow, and arrows flex with that line. They flex from the strong side to the weak side, and so this is where bear shaft tuning comes into place. And there's a lot of different preferred methods on how to find this out, man. Like, I'm sure you've heard that guys will put a knock on each end of the arrow, throw it in the bathtub, and then whichever side's pointing down is where that stiff spine is. Or the long way to do that is to shoot every bear shaft through paper and knock tune them and turn them until you're getting the same bullet hole every time. And I shoot victory arrows to streamline that process, man. Victory arrows come with a spine marked on them. So, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it's been plenty good enough to make sure that all my arrows are pretty much tuning the same. I will check those. I check my bear shafts, but I don't spend a ton of time on it, because when I build a new set of arrows for my bow, I build 24. Like, I will be shooting all day long trying to get all those things perfect. So I go with Victory's spine mark, and that's worked really well. I always point that straight up, so we're flexing up and down, and not too much time on the bear shaft stuff, but still making a point to make sure that spine's always pointed in the same direction.
Oh wow, yeah. I guess I should pay more attention to it. Like I definitely weigh all my arrows for weight tolerance, and then I shoot them through the paper tuner and just make sure that they're tuning right. I don't spend much time bear shaft tuning anymore, like I have at different times in my life. But yeah, anymore it's like, I don't shoot good enough to tell the difference. But that is interesting about like getting your spine turned the right way at those arrows, so each arrow reacts the same to the bow. That definitely makes sense, and maybe something that I could spend a little bit more time doing. But basically, you're trying to get a good paper tear through a good tear through paper, getting a perfect bullet hole consistently through paper with multiple different arrows is at least how I do it, and I spend quite a bit of time doing it. Which distances are you paper tuning, and do you check it closer and further?
Yeah, I do check closer and further. Some guys there are guys that literally have put paper tuners out there to 20 yards. To really see how their arrow reacts. Here in my basement, I can get about 12 yards, and that's the furthest I'll ever go. I just start everything close, and then I'll just check some arrows, just a couple of them a little further back, make sure the flight path is the same. My standard distance is not very far at all.
Mine either.
Like about 15 feet.
Yep.
And there's a lot of preferences on that too. A lot of people think you need to shoot from certain distances, but all the testing I've done with my bows, that distance of tuning has worked fine. And once I take the bow outside, with that tune from that distance, everything's worked out just fine for me. So I don't think
the proof's in the pudding. It's like I paper tune and I have my process, and I'm about the same as you, about 5 yards or so, and then I'll scoot a little bit closer, a little bit further away. I just want to make sure they're coming out of the bow straight, and I'm not getting like the perfect distance away where the arrow's oscillating and I'm getting a good tear or something. So I'll scoot a little bit forward, a little bit back. And you're absolutely right, is the proof is in the pudding. It's like when you get a good forgiving tune in a bow, you have it all within specs. You take it outside and you start shooting, broadheads. Your broadheads are slicing fletchings of your field points. Like, they are shooting accurately. So yeah, the proof is really in the outdoor and sticking big broadheads on it and having them shoot downrange really accurately. So that's what all this work is for, with the arrows, with your tuning process. Getting a good forgiving tune in the bow makes for good accuracy, I believe. And then once you take it outside, you see that accuracy come to fruition.
Yeah, everything we're doing here, man, is about getting broadheads to fly true. And I don't know about you, but I've never believed in the whole broadhead tuning thing, which is where guys don't really like paper tune. They more like to just kind of go outside, see where field points and broadheads hit, and then move the rest around to get those right. I'm telling you right now, any bow that I have made, any bow that I've adjusted that has a good paper tune and the bow is in spec, I can take that bow outside and shoot just about any broadhead accurately. That's why this tuning process is so huge, man, because what we're doing is we're preparing for the real situation where you're, maybe putting a big fixed blade on. You need that thing to fly correctly. And tuning a bow in spec has always led to me grouping broadheads at, just about any distance that I'm comfortable shooting at. And that's what I've always stuck with, because it's worked for me. Just like you said, proof's in the pudding, because that's what you need to strive for in this whole process. I need to get my broadheads to fly true. And, when people do that whole broadhead tuning thing where they're moving their rest around depending on where field points and broadheads hit, like when I practice, I want to practice like I'm hunting, meaning, wherever I'm aiming those field points at, that's where I want to know broadheads are hitting. I don't want to have to move the rest around. Like it doesn't feel right to me. And so, yeah, all those steps that we've talked about, man, this is what has just led to me being able to shoot broadheads accurately, because guys just want to go on forever about different brands of broadheads, which ones are more accurate and this and that. It's the tuning it's all in the tuning. If the tuning is good, you can get just about any broadhead on the market to do the job you need it to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, all right. So you got a good tune in the bow. It's getting along with these arrows. Now I think, we finally feel really good about the tune and the way it's shooting. Now it's just setting up that sight tape. And those sight tapes, it's not a 1 day or a 2 day process, at least not for me. Like, it's a multi-day or even week-long process to find the right sight tape. And I'll move those things around. But to have an accurate sight tape that's money for your broadheads out at all distances and your field points too, it seems like they hit the same, but there is a distance out at about 100 or so, depending on if you're shooting fixed or expandables, where your broadheads do start to drop off a little bit. So then you have to make the decision to set your sight tape to your field points or to your broadheads, which I always want it to my broadheads when I'm all said and done. But that sight tape, man, that is such a process. It's just not something that you can figure out in a day. Am I wrong there?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I play with it. The big thing before I go outside, man, I try to get at least 100 to 200 arrows through the bow just here in the basement, so that everything settles in. Because I go recheck everything, make sure draw weight's still good, make sure cam timing's right and all that. Just a little bit of a break-in period on the string. But yes, after that, stepping outside, making that sight tape is something that I will spend weeks on. Yeah, because I shoot single pin sights, man. So for everything's got to be just right. And that's another one, like going back to the way guys like to sight in rifles, they're doing it close or far. It's the same thing with a bow. Like, what kind of gap do you want to use to sight in your tape? The standard's always been 20 to 60. I stretch it out to the 30-80 gap, which takes a lot more shooting, man. Like, it's tough for me to make that sight tape based off my 80-yard group. Like, meaning, if I go outside, get that 30-yard group really well, and then I stretch out to 80, but I'm feeling off, like the group I'm making is big, I will come back the next day, because that is how you will make an inaccurate sight tape, is trying to do that quickly. Like, that's the downfall to me wanting to stretch it out so far. I've just felt that my sight tapes were more accurate when I did that bigger gap, that 30-80 gap. So I do not select a tape until I shot that 80-yard group and I felt like money. Like, every shot felt good, I felt like execution was good, and they're also just grouping. And that's how I get that sight tape gap. And I also use Archer's Advantage for that, which has always worked phenomenally. Archer's Advantage is cool because, unlike the tapes that come with sights that are kind of just preset to a certain feet per second, you can enter your peep to sight distance and the height of your arrow. The height of your peep above your arrow distance, because those things come into effect when you're making those tapes. And man, I have tested those tapes out at TAC and stuff, like on some of my target bows and my hunting bows. And I swear, man, if I can get that 30-80 gap right, I can shoot like out to, and this is always for fun, of course, but like 130, 140 yard shots at TAC. And that tape's always just came in perfectly. And then when I start making accurate shots at distances like that, when hunting comes up, like, a couple months later, man, do I feel confident, really confident.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do the same thing. I stretch out in that bigger gap, and then I'm marking where my 30 and my 80 is. I'm matching a sight tape to it. And then once I get a sight tape on there too, I kind of build a relationship with the sight tape, like really working it at different distances and longer distances, and just making sure I'm not a hair low or a hair high. And then, I almost don't trust one day's group on it. It's like, okay, well, we'll see how it shoots tomorrow. And then pretty soon I start to get a feel for it. Like, oh man, like out there, once I get past 80, like it's starting to drop just a hair low, 105, 110, starting to be a hair low. So I might move my indicator pin a little bit and then check it back at 30, or I may have to go 1 feet per second different on my sight tape. And I may put a different sight tape and then shoot that one and build a relationship with that one, So you're right. When it is spot on, you just have so much trust and faith that arrow is going to hit exactly where your pin is.
Yeah, exactly, man. And obviously the distances I was just talking about, I'm not practicing to hunt at those distances, but when we discipline ourselves and practice at those really crazy 100 plus yard distances, man, it makes 40-yard shots seem like such a chipper. And that's why, like, when you shoot those longer distances, you have to learn more control. You have to, and that's where everything comes into play. You got to make sure your grip is perfect, and everything you do manipulates arrow flight at that range. And if you can really shoot solid groups at those distances, that's what's going to make you just such a better archer when you step into the field and get those more typical, 40, 50-yard shots.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you get that thing all set up. It's like important to take your specs off your ATA and mark it down on a piece of paper. I also like to mark my cams where the riser crosses, just so I know if anything's moved at any time. Like once I get my tune and everything's set, I want to mark it and know that it's not going to move.
Yeah, exactly. And I do all the same stuff too. And after a summer of, shooting, before antelope opens up, I always step back in here and I check everything out, check that paper tear one more time, check all the specs. And, once all that is done, man, and our sight tape is good, I mean, we're good to go. We're ready to go hunting.
Yeah, I do find, like, as I get into summer right before seasons, like at least with these strings that I've been using, I noticed that they can be a little laxer. If I went on a bunch of hunts in the spring and I was in Australia and I was here, there, and everywhere, strings got wet, they dried out, I do notice that I'll start to lose a little bit. And so I'll check my ATA and it's like, oh man, it's a 16th off. And so that'll throw your sight tape off and everything off. And so you want to return it back to those specs. But I do find with, however many thousands of arrows I shoot throughout a year, that I do get some stretch in my strings.
Yeah, you will. Every string out there is going to stretch a little bit, and it should. That's what it's meant to do. It's a break-in period, just like a pair of boots. Make sure that stuff's all settled, which is why I emphasized shooting a couple hundred arrows here in the basement. And I'm not target practicing. I'm just working on form and just making sure that string has time to work through and get settled, because yes, strings can be a little finicky. I don't ever recommend getting tuned, getting your sight tape, and then just jumping into hunting if you plan on being abusive, or the weather plans on being abusive on your bow. Seen guys leave their bows in a hot truck by accident. And it's crazy. People will joke around about that, but I've seen guys leave a bow in a hot truck and pull it out, and their peep is twisted from the string getting so hot, depending on the brand and how hot it got in there. So yeah, strings, you got to take care of your strings, man. You got to keep an eye on them, and make sure everything stays good, because you don't want to end up out in the field and all of a sudden now from string stretch, you could a 50-yard chipper shot could end up being a nightmare.
Man, 100%, man. So spot on. Well, dude, that's exactly why I wanted to get through and walk through your setup with the bows. You're so meticulous, like how you set these things up. And it definitely pays off come season, and all the animals that you harvest with great shots, man. It's like the key to it. So your hunting season this year, I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but you and your buddy got an absolute slammer of a bull, huh?
Yeah, we did, man. He's been my best friend since high school. He moved out to Billings a while ago, started a family and everything, and we loved hunting together when we were younger. We've been meaning to forever. So this year we finally made a plan to get back together in a spot that he was very familiar with. And I wasn't. I was going to go into it brand new. So it was awesome, man. Like packed up the camper, headed out, got in this spot, and he's fairly new to archery hunting. He's been hunting his whole life. But he was excited about us getting out there together, man, and being able to bounce ideas off each other and, see what we can come up with. And we go into an area, man, that, we had the first day for him to kind of show me around and show me what he had learned about it. And right off the bat, I can tell this is an area that holds big bulls. The elk density was actually pretty low, and it was difficult. It was a difficult hunting terrain. It was very open with small tree patches. And I mean, the first night, I think we spotted like a 350 bull coming on the edge of one of those patches. And what we didn't want to do is start, penetrating in there hard, getting in those trees, getting our scent around. And, he had told me about some bulls he had seen here that were just monstrous. And there was one that he had a set of sheds off of. And they were, I held them, they were enormous. And I didn't try to put a score on them right then and there. And it was a bull that he had actually never seen alive before. But, knew this bull had to be somewhere. And that bull really didn't occur to us much while hunting. We were just trying to make the best of it. And I think it was the third day of the hunt. Elk hunting got pretty slow. Weren't seeing a lot during the day. Got back to camp, and we headed out on an evening, man. And it was kind of slow again. Weren't hearing bugles, and this year, I don't know if you noticed, Brian, but this year's elk hunting, everything was really weird from the moisture we had, and elk were acting very differently. Because as you know, like you, I love to do spot and stalk ambush tactics, and elk were not patterning the way they usually are because they had moisture and water everywhere. They had food all over the place. So these elk were just traveling. And one night, him and I came up on a ridge and heard a bugle on the other side of this ridge. And up comes a couple of cows starting to expose themselves on the ridge. And him and I are on one side of the ridge, these elk are on the other. And here comes this rack that I couldn't wrap my head around. It was a huge bull, man. And I saw some character in the rack that looked like the sheds, and got the binos out and started looking at him. I'm like, buddy, that is your bull. Like that's him. And he was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm sure. Like I can see the character, like everything's there. And immediately, man, we kind of just jump into the spot and stalk ambush methods. And my rule of thumb, man, is I don't call to magnum bulls like that. I got to assume this bull's been hunted his whole life. And everybody's been trying to kill him with the same method, of bugling and cow calling. But the advantage we had was that the wind was on our side, and we had a really good wind. And one of those cows went to dip back down the ridge, and he chased back after her. And so the elk disappeared down the ridge, and me and him got down low, and we scurried across that ridge as quickly as we could to get into this patch of dead trees we saw. We dive into that patch of trees, and then here comes one of the cows coming back up the hill. And so, like I said, perfect wind. And he's kind of angled behind me, and I'm just paying attention to what's going on, kind of trying to whisper to him, give him play-by-plays. And these elk come up, and this cow sweeps in front of us. And I I know the bull is going to follow up. And sure enough, another cow, and here comes that bull. And I will never forget this the rest of my life, man, because my buddy actually couldn't see this being angled behind me. But that bull let out a bugle in my face at 35 yards that I'll never forget the rest of my life. And he's coming up and he's following the path of these cows, and the cows are at 30 yards. And I know he's going to take the same path. And with everything I had, I'm whispering to him out of the corner of my mouth, like, draw your bow, draw your bow, draw your bow, draw your bow. And I hear him draw, and he still can't see the bull because I'm blocking him. And that bull swept in front of us. And he had, being in that dead tree patch, he had like a 15-inch gap to shoot through these trees. And right when that bull stopped, man, that arrow came flying past me and absolutely smoked him at 30 yards flat. Made a perfect shot. This bull went about 100 yards, tipped over, and we walked up to him, man, and we're trying to wrap our heads around it. Like, what is this? Like, what did we just do? Like, I've never touched a bull this big in my hands. And, we sat there, took it in together, like, pretty much the pinnacle reunion you could have as a hunting duo. And that bull, we did, it was a long night. It was a long night out in the field, man, getting them all prepped and everything, and getting them cut up and getting them back to camp. And when we did like a quick field measure, and we were getting in the high 380s. And then, later on, got him professionally scored, and his net score came out to 406/8. And it's going in the books. It'll be currently the number 4 non-typical bull taken with a bow in Montana.
Man, that's incredible. What a bull, huh?
Yeah, it was the most unreal thing, because, man, as elk hunters, that's the pinnacle. A 400-inch bull is a 1 in 10,000 elk. I was hoping sometime in my life to just be a part of watching a 400-inch bull get killed. If I don't kill one the rest of my life, just being there for that and watching this bull get perfectly shot at 30 yards by my best friend, who has earned this his whole life, has worked so hard. He had grinded it out on public land for so long his whole life, man, shooting a lot of bulls that I don't know if any of them ever came over 300. And, to shoot this bull, especially with a bow, we're still taking it in, man. Like, I'm kind of at a loss for words a little bit on it. But we're still trying to wrap our heads around what he actually killed. And it's the best thing that I've gotten to be a part of elk hunting, man. I mean, a 400 is it's the ultimate goal that 99.9% of elk hunters aren't sadly going to achieve.
Or even see.
Or even see, because I don't even know if I can tell you that while bow hunting, I've had a 400-inch bull come in my sights. I don't think I have, trying to think back on everything. And it was incredible, man. Like, it was the biggest highlight of 2023 and of my hunting life. And he was so deserving of it, man. It was an insane moment. Like I said, I'm still at a loss of words just talking about it.
Man, that's so cool, Cain.
Yeah.
Congrats to you guys. Like, what a bull. Just a bull of a lifetime, It's like, you think about some of those big things and wonder if you'll ever get the chance, or even to be part of, or even to lay eyes on, It's like such a giant bull. And dude, like a 350 bull is a giant bull. To go go 400 inches is crazy, man. I can't imagine. I measured one that a buddy shot that was like 390 one time, and I wasn't along on the hunt. I wasn't there. I measured it for him. It's just incredible that the numbers added up to that. And those big ones have so much mass. They carry so much mass out all their times, but it's like just like an absolute different species. But man, that is super cool. And super cool, like how you look at the experience and share it with your buddy. Like, really, in this life, like, we have our own personal hunting goals, but really, we've got our family and we've got our friends in life, and our friends, like, we have to pull for their success, and to see them succeed and to be happy for them. is like really meaningful and feels really good. And also, I think it's like good karma out in the hunting world. And who knows, maybe your 400-inch bull is coming next. Like you've killed a bunch of great bulls with your bow, and you're so consistent, man. It's just year after year after year, not just bulls, but bucks and antelope. You're such a good bow hunter. So yeah, I can't help but think like that you have a big one like that in your future. But yeah, congratulations to you too. What an accomplishment. What a bull, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. We're already planning our hunt next year together because of just both of us are guys that we've hunted alone a lot. I've shot most of my archery bulls completely alone, and we just realized how much more fun hunting is together, but how much more effective it was because we have super similar hunting styles, and that can be a lot of fun. And then 2 days later on that hunt, man, I arrowed a bear with my bow that's in contention for one of the top spots in the state for Pope and Young. So I'm really excited to see where that comes back at. We did that in the same trip. It was nuts, man.
I'm trying to remember, Cain, was it a big chocolate?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Him and I, yeah, he after he killed that bull, we were still hunting for elk, but we moved into an area where we had seen some really good bear sign. And just like you, man, I love to chase bears with a bow. And in Montana, chasing bears with a bow is about as, it doesn't get more fair chase than that.
So difficult, man.
Yeah.
Might be the most difficult species is to kill a big one with a bow.
Yeah. I mean, you're a master at it, man. I think that's like, you've shot so many with your bow, and I've always paid attention to everything you've said and done about bear hunting with a bow. But this year, in spring, man, I hunted very, very hard, with my bow for bears. I strictly went with my bow. Nothing ended up working out, put on a lot of miles, got rained on. But then in this hunt, him and I, we started getting on some bear sign, and we switched over into kind of a bear mode. And we got out on a really, really windy day. And we're walking out across some open country, man. And about, I want to say 3/4 of a mile away, we see a bear moving across the country that at first sight thought it was a grizzly. Like 100%. Brown, walking like a grizzly. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, do you think that's a grizzly? He's like, well, there's only one way to find out. And that bear kind of got into a little bit of a dip in the land there. And so we just start hauling to him as fast as we could, staying downwind. And luckily, like he wasn't popping back out anywhere. We're like, man, I think we're going to zero right in on him. And we come up over this little bluff, and there he is. He's digging at something along this pond. And when he turned his face to us, that was kind of the dead giveaway. Like, we put the binos on him, and he's like, that's the biggest black bear I've ever seen in Montana. And Montana's different, man, when we're talking about judging black bears. I mean, black bears here have their survival's a lot tougher. Like, we're not known for monstrous black bears. And I just couldn't believe the size of this thing. So my buddy stayed up on that bluff. And luckily, I just had this nice little finger to work down, and I start crawling down it. That bear held his position. And dude, spot and stock this bear right to 34 yards. I had one little boulder to hide behind, got that 34 yard range, pulled up and pulled through a shot and absolutely smoked him, man. And when he hit the ground, now it's getting even more surreal. Like, man, we just killed two like record book sized animals in a matter of 36 hours. And that bear ended up weighing. We were able to get a whole weight on him. He ended up weighing just over 350 and measured 7 feet square. And the skull it's still in a beetle tank right now. But when it comes out, we're hoping for that top 5 spot in Pope and Young with this bear. So big achievement for me, man. Like, I've been wanting to shoot a magnum bear like that in Montana my whole life, especially with archery equipment. Yeah, man. So it's just a couple of just absolute raw spot and stock hunts that couldn't have worked out any better. Shot placement couldn't have been any better. Like, yeah, it was a time I'll never forget the rest of my life. And I didn't even shoot an elk with my bow this season, and I'm still chalking it up as by far, best bow season I've ever had, which it's crazy. Every year I'm like, man, how can this get any better? And watching your buddy kill a 400 and then being able to arrow such a monstrous bear for the state of Montana. Man, I'm so grateful and so thankful. It was amazing.
Dude, it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
just a testament to all your hard work and dedication, dedication to your craft. You have worked tirelessly to improve to be the absolute best hunter you can be. And you didn't kill a bull this year with your bow, killed one with your rifle later in the season. But dude, you're year after year, you kill one with your bow and all the different species as well. So it's like all your hard work and effort over the years of improving your skill set to be a good bow hunter, like not only to find those animals, but to stalk those animals and then to keep your cool and be able to make a shot on a giant trophy. It's like some of these opportunities, if we would have got them when we were younger, I don't know that they would have turned out the same. Or it's like you almost work yourself to the skill set where you're at, and then you get an opportunity and able to capitalize. But yeah, that's just amazing, man. Good for you guys.
I'll tell you what, man, if 10 years ago, I would have screwed up both of those stocks. No doubt. No doubt about it. Those two kills, man, were the results of all different types of failures. Yeah. All the hard lessons I've learned, and animals that got away or I couldn't get an arrow off in time. This is what it all adds up to, man. And obvious, every year I try to improve the size of the animals I'm killing, or I try to get in a certain range of what I'm killing. But, two animals of this caliber is what all those failures lead up to, man. Because I remember when spring season closed this year on the night of June 15th, I was like, man, I don't know how I didn't make this happen. I have been out tirelessly. I've been in the rainstorms. I've just been hiking and grinding. And then, to come into fall season and be able to accomplish that, that's when I was really able to reflect back and be like, this is why failing is so important, because later on, when you look back, you can be like, yeah, there was all a reason for this, in my mind, my spring season was me earning that bear, and it's just something that added up to it, man. All these things, and everything we've talked about today, man, is, from working on the bows and, shooting smaller animals when we're younger and working our way up. This is what it all leads up to, man, is two animals of this caliber, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you're spot on. Well, yeah, man, always cheering for your success. Keep in touch. We need to get together and shoot here in this off season, or get together for a bear hunt or something. So yeah, keep in touch. We have each other's numbers. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast, man. It's just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I always appreciate talking to you, and I know this is pretty much our time to catch up each year. So I've really appreciated it, man, and keep it up with everything you've been doing, man. It's been fun watching you, man. I got to sit down and watch the BC Go hunt, and man, it tickled me, man. You've been just crushing it. And I tell you what, man, you're one of my, I look up to you a lot. I watch these videos and I watch how hard you work at this. And it's one of the things that goes into making me work harder every year. So I appreciate everything you do, and how hard you work to make these awesome films that are just incredible hunts.
It's so kind, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, man. And likewise, I look up to you as well. It's how hard you work and how dedicated you are to your craft. It's no surprise why you're seeing the success that you do. So thanks, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, guys. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening in. Thanks again to Cain for his time. Sharing just a bunch of information on setting a bow up from scratch, which I think is great. And I picked up a couple tidbits as well that I'm going to incorporate in my setup. One of them is that sight jig he was talking about for setting his third axis and everything. I think that would be beneficial. Mine is pretty rudimentary, old school way of going and shooting angles. So I'll definitely proof it. But yeah, I think I'm going to get that jig just to help me with setting up. It's so tough to get my bow level, and then the sight level and the level. It's such a process. So I think if I can streamline that, I'll be a little bit better off. But yeah, thanks to Cain for coming on. Thanks to you guys for listening in. Thanks to Eastmans for their support. Also, our sponsors, make sure to check them out over at Element, and also check them out at Sig Sauer Optics and Black Ovis. So, yeah, with that, man, I'm just fired up. It's like it's the beginning of the new year here. Definitely getting in all my lifting and weight training. Ran yesterday. It was negative 40-degree weather. I think it was only about minus 25 when I went and ran. But, yeah, definitely getting a dose of cold now. It's been such a nice winter, and I've been running on dry dirt, which has been really nice. And now the last couple weeks I've had to switch to running on snow. I actually want to get some cross training in and get on my cross-country skis here. But lately just been running in the snow, which is painful. It's just like takes so long to get anywhere. My miles are just so much slower, and it's like any of that snow is just like sand to try to run in. And I can see, I've always said like the exertion in snow is 2 or 3 times that of dry dirt, and it sure is. I can see it in my running times. Like, gosh, for me to do a 6-mile run takes me forever. But what it is good is it's good mentally to make myself get out there day after day. It's also good, like it's a high exertion running these miles, and it's a bit of a fight. So it's like training me for next late season as well. Like hunting these late season muleys in November and December can get bitter cold, deep snow, and it's tough to get around. So it's like good training for that. And yeah, it just feels good to kind of be back in the groove of things. Like, finish up hunting season. It was a great one with a bunch of good adventures. Like, man, my cup is sure full of like all these great muley adventures and elk adventures, and it's just fun to start over and start planning things. So, right now, looking at my Wyoming elk app, looking at my Arizona elk app, like, man, I would love to draw a premium tag, but just really diving in the research to find a good unit with the best odds that I can. And so, man, it's been really fun. It's like starting to think about next season. I've got that lift shooting so good, so accurate right now, shooting a bunch of indoor, and I don't know what my average is. I shot a couple 299s, and I think usually shooting in between a 295 and a 300. I have a couple 292, 293 rounds as well, but I'd say my average is probably around 296 or so. And man, I'm really close to just pumping out those 299, 300 rounds. I actually haven't shot a 300 with this lift yet. 299 rounds, and the other one the other day was my last arrow. Which is tough. All the pressure's on, and you really want to shoot a good round. And I have to say that I'm not in big tournaments. I'm not shooting big. Like, this is just me by myself practicing. Like, I love to practice with buddies and shoot leagues as well. But, this is just my own practice. But it's so nice. It's 40 below outside, and I'm getting my shooting and my arrows in every day. In fact, yeah, I shot this morning. I think I shot a 298 this morning, which was a good round for me. And, yeah, it's just been fun working on my form. I've got that new Matthews ID, that shot ID. And so it tracks absolutely all my shots, and I can look at all my shots and look what happens when I get late in my shot sequence, or, play around with my stabilization and see if my hold's better. So it's been really fun to play with. But, yeah, that's what I'm working on. It's just working towards next season, enjoying time with my family as well. Gosh, I better wrap this up or I'm going to get into another solo podcast. But I'm just so fired up at this 2024 season and trying to put some hunts together and figure out where I'm going to go. Man, it's so exciting. And so I love that this bow hunting lifestyle is 365, and also looking towards spring and seeing what I'm going to plan there. Definitely hunting spring bears. And but yeah, it's just a fun time of year for me where I can really reset and kind of move on to this 24 season. So super pumped. Keep working hard, you guys. It pays off. And man, can't thank you guys enough for the support. With that, I'll check in with you guys next week.